podcast where books and friendships collide. I'm Becca.
And I'm Keri, and we're two friends who love to talk about books. And today we are talking about chapters 31 through 40 of Powerless by Lauren Roberts.
Yep. Make sure to check our show notes for any trigger warnings.
And if you haven't read up to chapter 40, get out of here. But come back when you do, though.
It's time for our one-sentence summaries for chapters 31 through 40 of Powerless. Chapter 31. The trials end dramatically with all the contestants fighting and Kai accidentally injuring Jax.
Chapter 32. Kai is panicked and rushes to find a healer's power to save Jax. And after he does, the first trial is complete.
Chapter 33. The contestants are forced to watch the trials play out on the big screen, and Paedyn is shocked to find that Kai could look at her like he actually cared, before making peace with green eyes that look less and less like the kings in the gardens.
Chapter 34. We get the info dump of the century when Paedyn goes to her old house to find the resistance, where we find out who they are, who their leaders are, and Paedyn's father's involvement in this movement.
Chapter 35. Kai's jealousy is showing before Kai and Paedyn play a round of archery and play with each other.
Chapter 36. Paedyn and Kit deepen their friendship, where Paedyn places a seed of doubt into Kit's mind and gets a warning from the king afterwards.
Chapter 37. The second ball before the second round of the trials is here, and Pei is rocking a deep red dress before dancing with a grinning Kit and colliding with a drunk Kai that ends up in a ripped dress and a shocking gentleman.
Chapter 38. Kit and Kai relive old times and start to talk about the past, and Paedyn, to which they decide that they are not drunk enough for either of those conversations, and share a sweet brotherly moment before the second trial.
Chapter 39. The king orchestrates a rigged brawl between the contestants the night before the second trials that ends in a well-deserved broken nose and broken pride.
Chapter 40. The second trial has begun, where the contestants must work together, which proves to be just as hard as confronting potentially poisonous snakes along the way.
Yep.
We kind of ended on a little bit of a cliffhanger here.
We did.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A tiny one. That's okay.
I'm trying to think. I think it's chapter 50 that ends on a cliffhanger. So like a real cliffhanger. Yeah, I think it's next episode.
Oh, yay. We're going to be recording that real quick.
Well, I'm going to be out of town, so.
Dang it. I just won't read it until I know you're almost back.
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right. Let's get into our meet cute. So obviously we met these three. We're going to talk about three main meet cutes, but we met these three back a while ago, but now we're going to talk about them.
Yes.
So the first one is Lenny. He is the Imperial that is tasked with guarding Paedyn. He's in the Resistance, which we learned today. Well, not today, but when we read these chapters. He calls Paedyn Princess. He's a little bit sassy too, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
He is a mundane who is a hyper, which means his senses are enhanced, and we learn that he has brown eyes and red hair. I only, for some reason, included how he looked. I don't know why, but that's okay. Next, we have Hera Colt. So Hera is a Veil, and Paedyn wonders if she's one of the popular Veils that perform street magic in the slums. She is from the slums, and when she is mentioned throughout the book so far, she is said to be quiet or responding shyly. Unfortunately, she is killed by Braxton in a fight. So, rest in peace, Hera. We met you, and you're dead now, so sorry.
In our defense, we really met her, like, much earlier. We met her in, what, chapter 10?
Yeah, early.
Yeah.
That's okay.
We just didn't have a ton of information of her yet.
No, we got more here, I think. We saw her more. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The next is Andy. So she grew up with Kit and Kai and can transform into animals. Her real name, because I could not find her name in the list of who's in the Purging Trials, is actually Andrea Voss. So that's why I couldn't find her in my Kindle. So Andy and Jax seem to have a special friend relationship. They're always teasing one another, laughing together, which I thought was really cute.
Mm-hmm.
Andy helps Paedyn get Blair off of her during the fight before the end of the first trial. And at this point in the book, Andy is still alive. However, she was bit by one of the snakes on Plummet Mountain, so hopefully she's alive for a little bit longer. Because I could foresee a friendship building between Andy and Paedyn. I would hope. Now, we have some honorable mentions. So, since we actually met them in this set of chapters. So, we'll start with Finn. Well, we met him in the first set of chapters, but we're going to
We
talk
didn't
about
know
him
it was him.
We didn't know his name. So, he is an ordinary. So, like I said, we met him in the first set of chapters. He was buying leather, and Paedyn stole the note from him. He was also at the attack of the ball, and is funny. I like him a lot so far. Next we have Callum. Callum, I think is how you say it. He is a friend of Paedyn's father. He's a fellow leader of the resistance, and he is also a mind reader. So he reads Paedyn's thoughts, which I liked. Next we have Mira. She is Callum's daughter. She is a silencer, and we learned that it is very obvious that they are father-daughter based on their looks.
But not on their personalities.
No, that is true. Next, we have Lena. She is an ordinary. All we really know about her is that she has raven hair, and she's curious.
And she likes Paedyn. She wants to keep her.
Like a dog. That was a cute part.
That was cute. Okay, so next is our quotables, which is where we go over plot points, parts that we want to talk about, and pull out especially grin-worthy quotes or conversation-worthy quotes.
Oh my gosh.
All of the above.
If we were pulling out grin-worthy quotes, chapter, what is it? 35 would have been, we would have sat on that chapter for a hot minute.
Yes.
That's okay. Grin-worthy chapter.
Yes.
That's okay. All right, let's get into it. So chapters 31 through 32, I'm calling it conclusion of the first trial. Heads up, I don't have any clever names this time.
I have some clever names.
I saw that.
I'm so proud. I thought so hard about them. I was like, I gotta do them. I gotta make up for not having them for the past couple of weeks.
At least you have them where this week I don't. So that's okay.
At least you still have some.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. All right. So the contestants are forced to come together in a bloodbath of a fight. So Ace is the absolute worst, and we get confirmation after confirmation of that every time we see him. So he gets Kai with his illusions by using images of Paedyn in pain. So we know he somehow knows that Kai and Paedyn are like something, and that like Kai really cares about him or her.
That one was interesting to me because I feel like Paedyn, like when he did the illusions for Paedyn, it was Kit. But when he did the illusions for Kai, it was Paedyn, where I feel like it's interesting that he didn't choose Kai for Paedyn and then choose Kit for Kai.
I want to know how he picked.
Yeah, I think my magical moment section today, we dig into Ace's power a lot. So yeah, I'm very
Stay tuned.
Interested.
All right, so understandably, Kai gets furious at Ace, which gets even worse at the end of chapter 31 when Kai finally gets what he thinks is Ace, and it ends up being Jax once this illusion fades. So Kai, I pulled out this quote. He says, "For the first time in years, I feel true, terrible terror." We have to halt here because I was shook. I texted Becca and I was like, "Not Jax," because I thought he was legitimately dead.
Yeah.
I was shooketh. And I just want to note that I've talked about this twice now because Ace's illusions get me every time too. Not just the characters. I'm like, actually, oh my gosh, Kit is dead. Okay, Paedyn's in pain. Jax is dead. Like, every time.
And I think Lauren Roberts does such a good job with it because, like, if we're being honest, like, we're seeing it from when it was Kit, we're seeing it from Paedyn's POV. So we believed it. When we're seeing it from Kai's POV, Paedyn was actually in terror or in pain for him. So, like, he believed it, right? So I think like she does a really good job at like giving us all the facts and then giving us more facts, and then it's that fact is not accurate.
Exactly. It keeps getting me. Good job, Lauren. I get scared. But while this illusion, it was technically an illusion, but like Jax actually was injured. And so Kai really did almost kill Jax. It wasn't just an illusion. And in his anger and terror, Kai knows that he needs to do this one thing, which is find the healer in the crowd of people that he sees. And he knows that he can probably find a healer in there and then take the power and heal Jax. So during this entire scene where he is freaking out, he just keeps saying, "My little brother, my little brother, my little brother." And I just thought that was so sweet. Like you get like a real picture into Kai's mind and how much he cares about the people close to him, and I could feel how terrified he was. So again, like you said, Lauren Roberts did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So intense.
Yeah.
And then, like we've been talking about, you've brought this up a lot, Becca, about how Kai feels like he's a monster. So I wanted to pull out this quote here. He said, "I did this to him. He's going to die because of me, because I'm a monster." But he's really not a monster in this situation. Like, especially in this situation. In some other situations, he might be. But we all know Ace here is the true monster, and I hate Ace.
Yeah.
But once Kai does find a healer's power to pull from, he's okay, and the first trial's over. So I'm sure there's a lot of PTSD from both of them afterwards. Like, I don't know how I'd recover from that.
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's jump into chapter 33. So this is the aftermath of the first trial. So all contestants are forced into the bowl to watch their trials. So this would be like having to watch your Hunger Games only 3 days after it happens. So I can't even imagine how traumatic this is and how horrible this is. And like you could definitely see the king's hand in this, like being like, I'm going to manipulate them a little bit and make them more angry with one another and just continue to stir the pot, because apparently that's what he likes to do.
Yep.
So we do learn that Blair and Paedyn's fight was super intense, and Blair left her marks, and even the healers had trouble mending them. So we know Paedyn was probably not in a good place, because we don't get that in the chapters 31 and 32 because we're in Kai's point of view and focusing on Jax.
Yeah. I think something important that I pulled out here is like we get a note of how many were left. So there were only 7 of us left. And then so that means they only lost 2 in the first trials, which were Sadie and Hera, which you went over Hera, and last week we went over Sadie. So it's just they started with 9, there's 7 left. Something maybe important to keep track of later.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we got the dun, 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 dun. The screen of all the, oh gosh, what's the Hunger Games? The tributes.
The tributes.
Yeah. So we're not going to spend much time on this here, but I wanted to point out one thing that you, Becca, had said during our one sentence summaries, and I think it's worth quoting here. So it says, "I hadn't realized he could look at me like that. Look at me like he cared. It frustrates and flusters me all at once." Which is so cute. So Paedyn is realizing 2 things here. 1, that Kai cares about her. And 2, he may not be as bad as he seems. Which I think she started realizing with Sadie. So I also wanted to pull out a funny that I noted on my Kindle here.
Okay.
So it says, "The crowd buzzes as they lean in to hear our teasing." And I said, same though. Like, I was so dialed in these chapters because I live for their banter.
Yes.
Ugh, they're so cute. I need them to be together.
Yes. So something I wanted to pull out here, which I thought was so interesting. And Kai being jealous is one of my favorite things. But they're watching when Ace has the illusion and Paedyn is freaking out over Kit.
Mm-hmm.
And we get this quote. It says, "The body sitting beside me shifts, and my eyes drift slowly towards him. My gaze crashes into Kai's, ignoring his clenched jaw and taut brows. It's his cold eyes I focus on. I've never seen a stare so icy, yet so full of fire. The look in his eyes is chilling, and I shiver." He is so jealous that she was upset over Kai or Kit. So jealous.
I think I talk about this later, but oh yeah, I do. We'll talk about this in a second.
Okay.
Okay. I found a Powerless. I found
Amazing.
quite a few Powerless in here because I actually paid attention. I listened to the audiobook.
Okay.
And read it in my Kindle. So I caught 2, I think, in my Kindle and 1 on the audiobook. So here we go.
Amazing.
First one is, so when the crowd is putting in their votes, Paedyn says, "I hate feeling so helpless, so powerless, so ordinary." So that's Paedyn. I have a Kai one too, and I'm really excited. Okay. Okay. So later on in this chapter, we get more of Kit and Paedyn's friendship that I'm going to cover real quick because I think this is going to be important to, you know how in a story you have like everything's going great and then you have the big downfall.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to contribute to that.
Okay.
That's my predictions. Something to do with Kit is going to be the downfall of Paedyn.
Okay.
So
you'll know when you know.
I know. All right. Kit takes her to the gardens where she realized she has forgotten how bright the world can be. So I thought this was a sweet part. And then he also, with him taking her to the gardens, he's taking her to where the ball will be too, right? Because that's the same gardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know why, but I thought that was important. But whatever. I'll know when I know. Kit,
we've already gone. I mean, you've already read through the ball.
That's true. I don't know.
It's not that important.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you now.
Perfect. All right. So Kit likes when she tells him things that she shouldn't. So he likes her honesty. He likes that she's a real person, even though she feels so guilty that she's lying about being a mundane.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is good. Like, she's staying true to herself here. Like, she's not, like, changing into an evil villain or something. So
that's true.
I don't know. I get nervous every time you look away. And then I'm like, is she going to be a villain?
Oh. I don't. I'm
looking into everything here, so.
That was me looking at my Kindle that's sitting here, trying to decide if I was going to pick it up and look up something.
See, I look into things. I'm like, ooh. Okay. So Kit doesn't think like his father, and that's what we get from their conversation in this part. So he's open to the world and seems to only share his father's beliefs about the ordinaries because of his father. So he's not allowed like out at all, which is sad. And I'm confused as to why. Beyond just keeping the air safe, like it doesn't seem like a good idea. But I'm assuming it's because his father wants him to still believe what he's teaching him. It's
definitely a propaganda type thing.
Which is probably why he doesn't like that Kit and Paedyn are hanging out.
Probably.
And Paedyn and Kai. But
yeah, but we've already established Kai is the expendable son.
Oh, yeah.
At least that's what Kai thinks.
I mean, that's what we think right now, because we get Kai's point of view.
I mean, Kai is not expendable.
No, he is not, but
we need Kai for all of his cheesy one-liners.
We need Kai, we need him.
I just need Kai, like, in my ear all the time. Just like a little, like, he can be the little angel on my shoulder.
Or the devil. I feel like he would be the devil.
Nah, he's an angel.
So Kit wants her to look at him, and she agrees to look at him only if he listens to her. So now they're like, this is before she even finds the resistance. So she's already establishing this like trust with him, which will come in handy when she does join the resistance. So now here we go. Kit and Paedyn are kind of cute. I'm not gonna lie here. The splashing scene was adorable. Now, I don't know if I'm supposed to like them. I don't like that I like them because I like Kai and Paedyn more. I don't like love triangles.
Okay.
So I'm not loving where this is going.
Expand on that a little bit more.
I feel like Kit's gonna get hurt because we all know Paedyn is more attracted to Kai and would probably choose him because that's her like safe guy. Like she said, constantly says like he feels familiar, like the banter, the everything. I don't know. I feel like it's a love triangle, and I don't like it.
So you don't want Kit to get hurt? Is that why you don't like it? Or is it because you don't like the love triangle?
Both.
Okay. Why don't you like love triangles?
Because someone always gets hurt.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like someone, like if you think about in Bridgerton season 2, the show, like Edwina gets hurt. And I don't like that.
Yeah, they did Edwina dirty.
Very dirty.
So I go back and forth on if I like love triangles or not, because sometimes they're really fun. Like, not in like a weird way, but like this is a kind of cute way where like their relationships are so different. You know, so like Kit and Paedyn are like, they're like the slow friendship love versus Kai and Paedyn are
they're the enemies
to lovers. Yeah, love. So it's like, I don't know, they're just like different.
I know, and that's why I don't want, and I feel like it's even more complicated because again, it's brothers. Where like in Bridgerton it was sisters. And that just makes it worse. Like you have so many more dynamics and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Because that would also ruin the brothers' relationships.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know. This to me doesn't feel like a love triangle because Paedyn only ever refers to Kit as a friend.
Yes, but Kit has it for Paedyn, for sure.
That is true. But I feel like love triangles, there has to be some kind of feelings for both people. And I don't feel like that's like Paedyn doesn't have feelings for Kit. She thinks of him as a really good friend, but doesn't have feelings for him.
This is why I don't like them, because Kit is gonna get hurt. Because he has a thing for her. And he obviously doesn't see Kai and, well, he might see Kai and Paedyn. I'm sure he could feel that tension.
I think he
was holding the glasses, right?
Yep, he sees that. Ball. He watched the trials.
That's true.
He and Kai talk when they're drunk at the ball. He knows.
I just don't want this to be his villain origin story.
I think we've established pretty well that Kit is like not like the king.
No, but like as of right now, I don't want him to like send his brother off to war or something to get murdered or something crazy like that. Like I don't need him to turn bad. I like him too much.
Oh, you do like Kit? See, I don't like Kit.
I like him. I think he's a sweet boy. I guess he's a man, but if he can get drunk at balls, he's definitely a man. But
I think the reason I don't like Kit is because he's like, I feel like he lives in a bubble and he doesn't understand that he lives in a bubble. Or maybe he understands that he lives in a bubble, but he's not doing anything actively to change that. Versus Kai, I feel like Kit has never experienced hardships. Like, if we're being real. So, like, I think Kai is a more realistic. I think that's why Kai and Paedyn work so much better, is because they both have their traumas that they've experienced. And they both have a realistic view of the world where Kit really doesn't. And I think that's why Paedyn can only see him as a friend.
Yeah, I agree. But I still like him. I guess we'll see where that goes. But it's on the record. I hope it's not a love triangle, and I like Kit for now.
Mm-hmm.
So
We'll
it's on the
keep it on the
record.
record.
All right, let's move on. Chapter 34. So this is when Paedyn finds the resistance. So she goes back to her home to find the resistance, and when she's there, she even remembers fondly the time she robbed Kai, which goes to show girls got it bad.
Yep.
I wish we could just highlight this whole chapter because, like I said in the one sentence summaries, we get the info dump of a century. So I'm gonna try to go through these as fast as I can. Well, not really
Spitfire.
fast. Boom, boom, boom. So here's what we got. Lenny is a part of the resistance and is a hyper, a mundane, which we already talked about. There's a secret area behind the bookcase, goals, where the rest of the group we meet is. So they're hiding back there. I just want that so bad. I want that so bad.
Yep.
Anyways, that could be a whole other podcast episode. Finn has been waiting for her to come to the house once he realized she stole from him. So they've been expecting her to come. Lenny keeps calling her princess, and we're going to stop here.
Okay.
Is this new? Like, has he called her princess before?
No. So he says when they're going down the stairs, he like jokes like you could be an imperial, and then she says something that's like demanding, and he says, "Oh, maybe you are more of a royal than an imperial princess," and like that's where that comes from.
Okay. I thought I was looking into it pretty hard, and I was like, is she a secret princess or something? So we're gonna ignore a later note I made about that.
Oh, okay. Well, now I want to know.
It was just like, what does this word mean? I need to know.
Okay.
Anyways, we meet Callum, Mira, and Lena, and we get this wonderful line that we always need in a fantasy book or any type of dystopian novel. Welcome to the resistance. And then he goes on and says, well, a small part of it. We've been patiently waiting your arrival. We love the welcome to the revolution type vibes. Chills. Anyways.
Love that.
The resistance has been around for nearly a decade. Paedyn's dad, Adam, was one of its original leaders, and his house is one of the headquarters.
So, you added more notes below this, so I don't know if this goes here or goes later.
Go ahead.
But one of the things I wanted to highlight here is like Callum's going through and talking about like all the different like powers and how most mundane or most ordinaries like daylight as hypers because it's really easy to like there's not really a way you can prove that, I guess.
Yeah.
But Callum goes on to say to Paedyn, your psychic ability has been trained into you since you were a child, and it's the most convincing cover I've ever seen. So, like...
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 for Adam. I think Adam's going to be this, like, secret character. Not that he comes back, but that he's just, like, always present in Paedyn. And I think, like, 10 out of 10 for him.
So good. And they didn't tell Paedyn because it was dangerous, and her father most likely was killed, we find out, because the king found out, which is super dangerous for Paedyn and something we need to keep an eye out on now that we know this information.
Yep.
Which makes the king's threat even more scary. But during the purging, ordinaries remained in Ilya? Ilya? Okay. That's the first time I had to say that because I've always avoided it. So after the banishment and they hid, they are spread all around the kingdom and are able to do so this way to not arouse suspicion. So we learned that Kai also killed someone very close to Micah, who is the silencer we met in the first set of chapters. This could be important later, maybe, but it does make sense now that why Micah was so aggressive towards him.
Yeah.
The only thing I think would be important about this is that Kai probably killed a lot of people's special someones, so
yep,
or banish them or whatnot. So the resistance is made up of ordinaries, the fatals, and the elites, and they don't have proof to use against the king and his healers, so they don't have proof that they are actually causing disease. So all they want is the truth to be out. So I took out this quote: to not be hunted and killed for things they cannot control, simply because the king wants an elite society and is willing to lie.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that the ball attack wasn't really meant to happen. They didn't want that to be how the kingdom learned of them. They need Paedyn to get Kit to trust her enough and show her where the tunnel is that leads right under the box into the arena.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think their plan is gonna go well, in my opinion.
Which plan?
To go into the bowl and like tell the king that he needs to admit his lies. Like, that's a really dumb plan.
Okay.
I don't think it's gonna go well, knowing the king.
Okay.
But
you'll know when you know.
I know. I said, what do you think? Like, you haven't read this before. So just ignore that question. Boop. Because you know what happened.
I do.
All right. Let's
You'll
move
know
on
when you know.
I know. But that's my prediction. Yes. Okay. Words are hard.
Words are hard.
Last chapter, then I will stop talking. So I named this one The Tension.
In bold.
And italicized. Tension.
I thought you said you didn't have any good names.
That's true. I do have one. Okay. I will try not to talk too long about this chapter. But this chapter is from Kai's POV, where we get a powerless quote. So ding ding ding. I never want to feel powerless like I did when Micah ambushed me near Luke. But we get a few more things from this chapter before we get the actual tension. Mm-hmm. So Kai has been training with his father's silencers, which aren't banished. So his specific silencers aren't banished because they're fatals, right?
Yeah, so we get this information earlier that the king has at least, I think it's one of each fatal in his court that's loyal. So, yeah, so he's been training. Loyal. I mean, I guess.
They might not be loyal.
They may not be, but yeah, so that's why, like, they're not banished because they're loyal to the king.
Okay.
How do they, I think you bring up a good point. How do you know if they're loyal or not? But
I mean, they banish the rest of them, so I don't know. I wouldn't be very loyal. Anyways.
I'd be terrified and be loyal out of terror.
That's probably what I would be like in real life, but in my mind. Awesome. Anyways, we learned a few more things from this chapter. I already said that, so we're going to move on to that. We're going to take that part out.
Okay.
We also learn that Kai is jealous of Kit and Paedyn and how much time they've been spending together. He doesn't know about this whole secret motive that Paedyn has now.
Nope.
Again, I'm not loving this love triangle. We learn that Paedyn is really good with the bow and arrow. Hashtag Katniss Everdeen. And then down to the good stuff. Okay. I could have highlighted this whole bow and arrow competition between Paedyn and Kai, but I didn't. So their tension is beyond. I know. I can't. Their tension is beyond good, irresistible. I was eating it up. Now, all I'll say is please go read chapter 35 if you have it.
Again. Go
read it again. It's so good. Why
not read it again?
So I'll pull out only 2 quotes here. She knows that barely feeling her at all will drive me mad in a way I can't explain, in a way I've never felt before. You're a cruel little thing, you know that? My voice is deep, desperate. Ooh. I'm gonna need to turn my fan on. It's getting hot. Just kidding.
Fan. But not that you could feel that through the computer.
True. So I think Paedyn learned watching back from the trials what her power over him is and can be, and she's using it, which I love. And then one more quote here, I promise. I didn't realize a single touch could affect you so much. And then Kai says, neither did I. And then Kai loses their game.
really quick before we get to that, I do want to note, so you said Paedyn learned by watching the trials the power over him. I think part of this is also she's trying to distract Kai because he's in a crappy mood.
Mm.
Like he's very obviously in a bad mood. He walks over, or she walks over, and he's like kind of a jerk at first, and she's like, "Oh, you're in a bad mood," and then she starts distracting him. So I
Yeah,
think this is both power flirting, but also an intentional distraction on her part because she sees that he's in such a crappy mood.
I like that. That's been a theme too.
Yes. On to chapter 36. So, my title for chapter 36 is The Beginning of a Would Be Friendship.
Cute.
Okay, so we start off where Kit and Paedyn are in the kitchen. They're starting to become friends, which is her new mission. And she's noticing the differences between the king's eyes and Kit's eyes more and more. And she's starting to think of him as a friend, which is, I highlighted, which is so funny, so different than how she thinks of Kai right now. Friend versus, I totally forgot I put that in there. That's why I said that earlier. But she's starting to think to see of Kit as a new person and who he is as a person. And we get four like really like big things, right? He likes to have fun, he laughs a lot, he's willing to help clean up the mess that they made, and he knows the servants by name. Like 10 out of
He's a
10.
good guy.
He's a good guy. However, she starts to sow the seeds of doubt in his mind by asking if they can go to loot. Now, she feels guilty about it, but she is starting to plant those seeds.
Mm-hmm. And I pulled out this quote where she said, I selfishly find myself wishing he was more like his father because it would make this betrayal far more bearable. Which I was thinking the same thing before she said this.
Yeah, it's like sad that he's such a good guy.
Yes.
Yeah. But she does feel guilty about like sowing these seeds of doubt, but what she's saying is true when she says, quote, as the future king I sigh, you should see your people, see how they live in the slums, see how they survive. Like that is so true, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about Kit really lives in a bubble. Like he really does. So Kit admits that the reason he doesn't know is because of the current king, and I think Kit wants to know what's happening but hasn't been so far because the king says he can't. And we get this quote, I never leave the castle unless it's absolutely necessary, and seeing my people is not, according to him, which like goes to show both the king as a father, Kit as a prince, and the king as a king. Like he's a crappy king.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't show his people, or he doesn't see his people. So the king is sheltering his, like, everyone from everyone else, like sheltering his kids the most, or at least Kit. Kai, not so much, but Kit is being sheltered for sure.
Do you think, like, Kit is a little scared of his mindset changing if he goes to the slums?
Scared of whose mindset changing? His own?
Yeah. And what the consequences would be. And what the next steps would be. Because I feel like Kit is a person to act on those.
I don't know. I think it's less about his mindset changing and more about him feeling like he disappointed the king.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see that.
I think it's more about being a good son rather than anything. Because they talk all the time about how Kai and Kit are both fighting for the king's love.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I did want to highlight this one thing, though, is the way that Paedyn plays Kit here is showing that she is also morally gray. And sometimes I think FMCs aren't portrayed as morally gray, and like that sometimes makes them hard to read for me because I'm like, well, this character can do no wrong. So like, how am I supposed to identify with them? Because I am not perfect. But I think even though Paedyn is the main character of the story, she's messing with Kit here and showing that she is also morally gray. She's doing something wrong. There's no arguing that she's doing something wrong, and she knows she's doing something wrong, but she's doing it anyways. And as Harvey Specter says, sometimes good guys gotta do bad things to make the bad guys pay.
I love that you included a Suits quote.
Oh, of course. Harvey Specter is going to be my he's going to be the angel on my shoulder, putting all his sayings in my head. Actually, Harvey Specter is probably the devil on my shoulder. We'll
Yeah, I
have
was about to
Kai.
say. If you have Kai as the angel and Harvey Specter as the devil, I think that's you have two very morally gray men.
Yes. Okay, so then after this conversation, the king approaches and talks with Paedyn. He thinks very low of her, which is not a shock. He thinks that she could influence his sons, which is so interesting. Like that's like what he's afraid of. And then number 3, she thanked the plague.
That was huge.
That was so big, which is such a big turnaround from, like, I think we get it in chapter 2. Like, she's never said that, and we get that reinforced here again. But I have this question. From this point forward, should we keep track of who says thank the plague?
We should. Be cool.
Because it may change. It may show who's in the resistance and who's not.
I like that. Let's do it.
Okay, so afterwards she's getting ready for the ball, and Ellie, Adina, and Lenny all agree that she looks like a princess. So now she looks the part too. Okay, so moving on to chapters 37 through 39, the night before the second trial.
Ooh.
Okay, so all 3 of these chapters take place over the course of like 4 hours.
Which is so funny.
So funny. Okay, so we get that the ball is beautiful. There's all those colors in the garden again. Paedyn is wearing a deep red, which again is different from everybody else who's still wearing green. Paedyn and Kit are each other's dates for the ball, and although the only other dates that we see are Andy and Jax, like we don't see Blair and Kai being dates. We don't see there's only 7, so it would be, I'm trying to think, Braxton and Ace, because they both lost their dates.
Yeah.
And we really don't see Blair except for interrupting Kit and Paedyn.
And I hate her.
Yes. So anyways, so then we see Kai, who is drunk as a skunk, and he did tell Paedyn that he and Kit used to get drunk at balls all the time, so it's not out of character necessarily, but this is for a different reason than normal. And it used to be just because he wanted to get drunk, but this time, and we get this quote, and Paedyn says, well, maybe if you kept your eyes on the dance floor and your nose out of your glass, we wouldn't be in this situation, I say coolly. And then Kai says, oh, darling, my eyes were on the dance floor, he says casually. They were on you dancing with my brother. Then he huffs out a laugh, craning his neck to shake his head at the canopy of leaves above us. Why do you think I've been drinking? So
this is one of my favorite quotes.
Hilarious. I loved it. I'm here for it. I think you have a quote here too.
Yeah, I don't know if it belongs here, so I'm sorry if it doesn't. But
okay.
One of my favorite things when Kai and Paedyn end up dancing later on, and Paedyn goes, it's so familiar, the feel of each other, the footwork, the flirting. And she goes on to talk about how even when he's so intoxicated, he managed to be even. And then she says, I suppose some masks never seem to slip.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this scene is probably, if I'm thinking back to my favorite scenes in the book, this is probably one of my favorites in the whole book, because we get to see Kai with a mask on, but it's loose. So we get to see behind the curtain more so than we did in even the trials, I think. And I think this also goes to show that this is more than just in the trials. Like, I think sometimes, like, even going back to the Hunger Games, like Katniss and Peeta, they were, quote, in love in the trials, and then, or in the Hunger Games, and then they got out and they weren't anymore because they were faced with real life. I think this is really interesting that Kai is still the same person towards Paedyn inside the trials and outside of the trials.
Yep.
So also the banter is bantering. Because of that, I'm just going to quote some of Kai's lines that are my favorite. So we have 4 5? Anyways, okay. Quote, will you forever be the prize I am aimlessly trying to win? Quote, oh, darling, a trophy implies that I won it, earned it, deserve it. But if I get to have you, it will because you let me. That quote is so fun for me because we're seeing both cocky Kai and insecure Kai all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful. Such beautiful writing. Quote, darling, I'm used to being covered in other red sticky liquids far worse than wine. Interesting. Let's not dwell on that too long.
Nope. We like Kai.
Quote, and if you want to run your fingers through my hair, I wouldn't be opposed to... And then Paedyn cuts him off. And then last, quote, even with my stupid dimples, you still like my smile? Yes, Kai, we love your smile. Okay. Can we talk about, so his mom comes over when they're dancing and calls him Malachi. Can we talk about how his name is Malachi?
I love that.
I loved it. When I first read this, I was like, my jaw was on the ground. I took a breath. I was shook. I was like, oh my gosh, this I love that his name is Malachi and it's Kai for short.
I hope that Paedyn calls him Malachi in the future of the book.
Too.
Or in Reckless.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need it. That's all. I just need it.
Yes. It's a need.
It is a need.
Okay. So then they're dancing and Paedyn starts going into a mental spiral and Kai is the one who makes her go into this mental spiral.
Yep. And here's a powerless. She says weak from worry, powerless from panic. No, just powerless.
Yep, exactly. So this mental spiral is what triggers her claustrophobia. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do a deep dive on claustrophobia.
Let's do it.
Okay, so claustrophobia, according to WebMD, is an anxiety disorder that causes an intense fear of enclosed spaces with symptoms being shortness of breath, fast heartbeat, sweating, shaking, nausea, dry mouth, hyperventilation, numbness, chest tightness or pain, panic attack, and more.
You did like the side effects on a commercial.
I did. So here we see 3 big ones, right? So we see shortness of breath, fast heartbeat, and panic attack. And I'd like to just talk a little bit about phobias here and fear itself. So just because someone is, quote, over their fear or phobia doesn't mean that they're healed, right? The reason that this happens is because of the brain pathways that are created when thoughts are repeated over and over and over, and it's strengthening those pathways. So think about when you buy a new house and you're driving home from work and you go to the old house, it's a habit that has gotten into your brain and you don't even realize it's there, and you have to consciously overcome going to your old house when that happens. Now, it's not as easy as that because you actually, when you're driving to your new house, your body is physically doing something versus mentally creating a new pathway. And that's where it becomes really, really hard because sometimes you don't even realize the thought pattern that you're in and you're reinforcing until you're so far down that hole that you cannot get out. So one of the things that I appreciated here is that we are almost told that claustrophobia is a, quote, old fear. And we get, quote, I let my mind out of control and spiral, my deep-rooted fear of claustrophobia only uprooting after the initial panic that was caused over him. So this is such a beautiful showing of how you're never really over this anxiety, you're never really over this phobia, even if it's a, quote, old fear, right? So Paedyn is experiencing a stressor in Kai that overstimulated her. While that overstimulation is happening, she was experiencing the trigger of her claustrophobia, which was being in large crowds. So it's not that Kai caused the panic attack because of the claustrophobia, it's that he was taking up so much brain power that her brain took the very easy reinforced pathway to claustrophobia to reduce the workload that her brain was going through.
Interesting.
So it really is interesting. This is your tea. This is Well, it's beautiful because we get this amazing mental health, like not only is it mental health representation, but it's walking us through how this would happen in real life versus just like, yes, it's a fantasy novel, but it's also like these are real things that happen to people every single day, right?
Yeah.
So, um, all of this to say is this is a beautiful, like I just said, it's a beautiful example of someone who has done the work to relieve a lot of the symptoms of her phobia,
Mhm.
but it still pops up every once in a while. And I just want to say to our listeners, if you're struggling with phobias or anxiety or anything, if you're going through reworking your mental pathways right now and you experience a flare up, do not be ashamed of this. It's not your fault that your brain is working against you. Like, just know mental health is hard and rewiring your brain is hard. You're literally forcing your brain to work against your brain. Like, that is so difficult to do. And it's very draining. So, like, you're it's okay. You're not alone in that. The other thing I want to point out here is the worry that Kai shows. And family and friends in real life, we're going back to real life, family and friends who watch someone they care about experience a panic attack can also experience that panic and worry themselves because they don't know how to alleviate the problem, especially for people who can't communicate when they're having a panic attack. So, like, here, Pei was able to communicate that she was experiencing claustrophobia, right? She literally says claustrophobia. That's the only thing she can get out. But Kai was still worried. And he was able to assist her, though, by taking control of the situation, which, if you are a friend or a family member of somebody who has a phobia or anxiety, like, this is a perfect way to, like, help somebody else is to take control of the situation. Sometimes taking control of the situation is just grabbing onto them and hugging them as tightly as you possibly can until that panic subsides.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's what Kai does, and he doesn't wait for an explanation. He presses her to his side and he gets her away from the crowd, which is which is triggering this claustrophobia. And then once they're out, he gives her space when they get out, and then he rips her dress. Even though he's smirking, it's to help her breathe better, which, Kai, 10 out of 10 for taking care of your girl. Like,
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. And then he does what he does best and he distracts her. So instead of her feeling ashamed about having this claustrophobia, she's angry at him because he ripped her dress and then he's smirking and then he's just like having a good time, right? And again, such a beautiful picture of him taking care of her in this way. Okay. Whew. Y'all didn't know you were signing up for a mental health lesson today, did you? Okay, so later that night, Pei is in her room and Kai and Kit are playing a drinking game, getting even more drunk on the outskirts of the party. And even Kit doesn't, I wanted to highlight that even Kit doesn't really see the king happy, even though we've been kind of told that they have a better relationship than Kai and the gang.
Yeah.
So we get this quote. "This is the happiest I've seen him in, well, years," Kit says quietly, all traces of humor gone from his voice. I nod in agreement, watching the king smile at his queen in the way he's done only ever for her. Beautiful.
So cute.
And then we also learn a couple other things. So the little girl that Kai banished at the beginning of the book wasn't the first one he took mercy on, and Kit is the only one who knows that he takes mercy on kids. And we get this quote from Kai that says, "Even monsters can have morals." Oh,
I can't that he thinks he's a monster.
I know. It just breaks my heart.
Kai, you're better than that.
And then we also get a Kit is falling for Paedyn, and Kai doesn't want to talk about it. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is interesting, and we're going to come back to this later. It's interesting that Kai's response to Kit's questions about Paedyn is the same response he gives when he talks about giving mercy on the kids. And it's, quote, "I'm not drunk enough to talk about this right now."
Yes.
Very interesting there. That's all I'm going to say.
And this quote, when Kit first asked him about Paedyn, and he's like, "What do you think of her?" And Kai thinks, "What do I think of her? When do I not think of her?"
Yep.
So cute.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest is scheduled for one fall. Yes, we're officially leaning into my WWE because why not? It's part of who I am. So, first we have Kai and Braxton. Your winner is Kai. Second is Andy and Ace. Ace gets a beating, and we are here for it because he deserved it, and Andy is our winner. Third is shockingly Blair versus Paedyn. And then Kai gives Pei a speech that's basically, I believe in you. You can do this. You're better than her. I love it. And then so much for no weapons because Blair begins throwing weapons literally right away. And no one really wins this fight, but Paedyn makes a point, which is even more important.
I love the quote that says, "Proving to myself and everyone watching that I am still a threat."
Yeah. And then I have a question because I don't remember this, but have we gotten information about how the votes actually help the contestants in the trials? Or is it more of just like a betting, gambling type thing?
I have no idea. I'd have to look that up back in the early chapters, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I
I
don't know.
wish I knew because it's not like it's the Hunger Games where they're getting like, you know,
gifts. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
And then chapter 40, the beginning of trial number 2. The next morning, Kai wakes up on Plummet Mountain, and this is the mountain to the north. So remember, the first trial was in the Whispers, and that's a forest that's to the south. The Plummet Mountain is to the north of the kingdom, basically. So he is grouped with Andy, Braxton, and Blair. Again, a very intentional grouping by the king. So this group compared to the other group, which out of the 7 contestants, the only other contestants are Paedyn, Jackson, Ace. So this group, which is Blair, Braxton, Andy, and Kai, have a much better chance of getting to the top of the mountain first with the powers that they have at their disposal. So remember, we have Blair, who's a telly, Bronny comes from Braxton, and Andy is a shapeshifter, and Kai can use all 3. Now, before everyone else wakes up, Kai sees writing on his arm that says, quote, "She said I could touch her when I'm sober."
I love this quote. I love that he wrote it down. I love that he was like, "I'm not gonna forget this."
Well, he says, like, it's hastily written, but it's relaying a very important message. I love it. Okay, so the point of this trial is to work together to reach the top of the mountain. Andy is blabbering on about a bunch of things, bringing Kai entertainment, because, again, Kai is bored in these trials. Like, why is he bored? Like, that's just, like, so... It's such a Kai thing.
It is.
We also get that Andy isn't scared of Blair either. So I also wrote maybe her and Paedyn will become friends.
I hope so.
I wanted to highlight here that Andy is a great side character, right? So she's an old female friend of our male lead who isn't any kind of competition to Paedyn. So we as the readers get to enjoy being with his old friends and seeing the people around him who are loyal to him without feeling that jealousy about her potential relationship with Kai, which I think is so important.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Lauren Roberts, I have sung your praises, but this I struggled with. The snakes were a bit difficult for me to understand here. Now, I think we learned a lot of information here, but it could have been done in a different way. So we get that Andy gets bit and needs to be carried the rest of the way up, right? We get that Blair is afraid of snakes and forgets she can use her tele powers on them when she's afraid. We get that Blair is a sore teammate. And we also get this reaffirmation that Plummet Mountain has deadly creatures. So it's not just Kai telling us, it's like this is showing that it actually has deadly creatures.
There were snakes in the first trial with Andy and Jax too.
Yep. So I think all of this could have been accomplished. All 4 of these could have been accomplished in another way, or just using one snake instead of the whole scene where they're throwing the dozens of snakes off the mountain. It just felt very like unneeded and like
Yep. I was so confused half the time. I
yeah,
couldn't like envision it. Like, I don't know. It wasn't
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and like I said, I have so enjoyed Lauren Roberts' writing. That was just really difficult for me because I was like, I'm gonna need a little bit more here.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if they are poisonous too. I know I said that in the one sentence summaries, but I really hope Andy survives it.
Yeah, me too.
And I hope Blair gets bit and is no longer in the trials. No, I really want Paedyn to get her.
Yeah,
I don't know if that'll happen, but
you'll know when you know.
well, I'll know what I know, but I hope it happens.
And then they're climbing again, and that's all for our quotables.
I love it. All right, you ready to dive into our tomes and tonics, which you can follow as we get drinks, or mainly Becca at this point, but you can follow along on our Instagram. We have a tomes and tonics little story thing. Yeah, highlight. I don't know what those are called, but it highlights the drinks that we think the characters would get from our Meet Cute section. So we're only going to do our main three. So we're only going to do Lenny, Hera, and Andy. So let's start with Lenny. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
I said Lenny was a vanilla sweet cream cold view because that's an old faithful. When I think about getting a coffee drink, that's like one that I feel like just about anyone and everyone would like, and that's how I feel about Lenny.
Yeah. I almost chose that one, but I went with a iced mocha latte with no whipped cream, and I chose no whipped cream because I think he wouldn't want to be seen as like extra with getting whipped cream. But I feel like Lenny would be like that guy that comes in that's like he just got done working out, but he likes sweet coffee, so he'd get like something with chocolate. I don't know. I've definitely seen that guy come in, and I thought of Lenny. So that's what that is. So
I love that.
Although Hera is dead, let's go ahead and do her drink, what she would get before she died. What do you think?
I said she was an iced green tea, mostly because we don't get a ton of her, and she's kind of shy and introverted, and that's like when you go up to the counter, I just want an iced green tea. Like that's just super easy and like no fuss.
They can't mess it up.
Yep.
Or they could, but they shouldn't.
Yep.
I went with a tea too.
Okay.
I went with a black and peach sweet iced tea. And actually, my mother-in-law got me this Gold's Peak peach black tea. And I was going to make this. Like, I was going to make this and do like a little reel. Bless you. But now I get to just take a picture of this later for our tomes and tonics. And it was delightful. And I think Hera would like this because it's easy. She could just go to the store, pick it up, pour it. Wouldn't have to interact with anyone, because I agree. Something simple that nobody could mess up.
Yep.
So she wouldn't have to complain behind their backs, because we all know she wouldn't approach them.
Exactly.
Hera is me. Me is Hera. Andy, I said a strawberry dragon fruit refresher from Dunkin'. I branched out from Starbucks and went through Dunkin's menu.
Okay.
What did you put?
Well, why did you put the strawberry dragon fruit refresher?
Because I think she'd want something with energy, but like sweet and fruity.
Okay.
She just gets that vibes.
Yeah. I said a strawberry acai refresher from Starbucks. And I have a little note in my phone that I was like brainstorming on, and I swear I did not look at yours until I like typed it in the outline. And I like saw it and I was cracking up because I was like, yep, that's about right. Our brains were on the same.
We were on the same for these guys. But yes, I definitely want to try the strawberry dragon fruit refresher from Dunkin'. So there was also a mango one, but I'm allergic, so we won't be trying that. And then there's a Dunkin' right here, so the likelihood of me being able to get a Dunkin' drink over a Starbucks drink, which is like 15 minutes away, is more high. So I was like, I'm gonna get some Dunkin' for our
Are you gonna turn into Are you going to turn into a Duncan girly?
No, because this one sucks, if we're being
Oh.
honest. This Duncan sucks. Especially when you lived in the Northeast where Duncans are good. Like Florida Duncans are not good. But Connecticut Duncans, New York Duncans, like those Duncans they know what they're doing. I don't know what's wrong with them.
Tim Hortons is always the best.
I want to try that.
You've never had Tim Hortons?
No, I know.
We'll figure it out. We may just go drive. I think the closest one from here is 4 hours. So the next time you come visit, we'll drive to get you Tim Hortons.
Why don't we just go in January when Onyx Storm comes out, and then we'll go get Tim Hortons and rent a cabin and read Onyx Storm?
Because I'm not going to be in
freaking cruise. Dang it, Becca Yarros. Why can't you plan it around Becca's cruise?
I know. In my defense, the cruise was booked before we knew the release date of Onyx Storm.
That's why I blamed her, not you.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Sweet.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're getting distracted.
That's okay. Okay, so for today's magical moments, we are going to highlight a couple things about Ace's illusion power. So for someone who we don't like very much, Ace gets a lot of podcast time.
He does.
Okay, so a couple highlights for things we learned about Ace's power. And I have 5 with some notes to back it up.
Perfect.
Number 1, he can project illusions out of nowhere. So think about he projects just the thick stone wall around Kai. This also goes along with his projections of Kit in the pond and the little Paedons. He can project them just out of thin air. Second, he can duplicate project. So we think about the multiples of Ace when we see when he's fighting with both Paedyn and Kai. Pei figures out which Ace is the real Ace much faster than Kai did. So 10 out of 10.
Good job, girly. Girl power.
Number 3, he can project illusions on himself. So he blends in with his environment when he's fighting with Kai. Number 4, he can project illusions onto other people when he projects onto Jax. And number 5, he can project sound illusions. So we see that when he's fighting with Kai and his voice comes from different places all around Kai when they're fighting. Now, this one was really interesting for me because I think this goes to show a lot about an illusionist's power. So I looked up the definition of illusion, and most of the time illusion is paired with the sense of seeing, right? So the sight sense. But here we learned that this power can deceive any sense. So we have that sound illusion, right? Now, the definition of illusion is a thing that is or is likely to be wrongly perceived or interpreted by the senses, which can also affect the reality of the perceiver, right? Now, we know that he cannot use the sense of touch because when Pei is fighting with Sadie, she thinks, quote, except unlike Ace's illusions, which I've already had the pleasure of facing, Sadie and her copies can touch and hurt me. So Ace cannot provide touch illusions. So we have both visual and audio illusions, but we don't have touch illusions. So I'm wondering if we'll get smell and if we'll get, what's our 5th? Oh, taste. I feel like that would be kind of weird. We may get smell. But Ace's power has a lot of interesting applications here.
It does.
So very interesting.
Very.
Okay, and then we also meet a couple new powers within the Resistance. So Lenny is a hyper. So hyper is basically all of your senses are multiplied times 10. Silencer again. So we have Mira as a silencer. We learn about bluffs, which are lie detectors, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Callum is a mind reader. So we finally we finally have an experience with a mind reader. And then, which is basically we expected, very self-explanatory. But we still don't have a controller. We still haven't met a controller yet. And we still are not 100% sure what they do. Or why they're fatal.
I could imagine why.
Well, me too. But we don't have any experience.
I'm sure we'll get that. If not in this book, definitely the next book.
Yes. Okay, so That's it for our magical moments, and thank you so much for listening to us today. If you liked today's episode, please rate and review us wherever you listen and give us a 5 stars, or subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure to share us with your friends who are also wanting a Powerless refresher before Reckless comes out.
Mm-hmm. And for more content, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Tomes and Tropes Pod, especially if you want to see really dumb TikTok memes that I've created, because they're funny. Or I think they're funny.
Keri is our social media guru. She's so good.
Guru is a strong word. But if you have thoughts about this episode or this book, email us at tomesandtropespod@gmail.com. And if you want to talk spoilers, Becca's always down to talk spoilers. But make sure you clarify so I don't look at it.
Yes, please do. And if there's anything you want us to focus on in a certain chapter, let us know.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
We'd love to dig in.
Yes. So we'll see you next week when we go into chapters 41 through 50.
Stay curious and keep reading. Bye.